What's up, folks? Maximilian here, and welcome back to Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, The Online Warrior, Season 2, and we've just hit Episode 17. So it's been a kind of a slow week for the competitive scene of Ultimate Marvel 3 over the past week. We recapped the events of SoCal Regionals, which were pretty substantial last week, talked about some new methods of play, especially Wolverine and the Rushdown method used by some members that might be extremely effective against other methods that are very defensive and very keep-away centric, but are extremely effective, like Morrigan and Doom missiles. It's an interesting episode. If you want to go back and check it out, the annotation should be in the top right. What we're going to talk about today is kind of a jam-packed episode. I'm going to talk about a little bit of news that has happened, and we're going to talk about a topic of conversation, which is about infinites, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some questions, and I'll offer some answers from the previous episode, and maybe we'll get into a user-submitted video by the end of this episode today. So kick back, enjoy some online ranked games. I'm using Dante still quite a bit, and let's get into the news. So the news today is kind of non-news in a way, but it definitely is something. A lot of the times when it comes to Ultimate Marvel, the news that you repeatedly hear is that there's no more Ultimate Marvel, there's no more Ultimate Marvel. But there was a resurgence a few weeks back, and there was a lot of players and a lot of community members that were made aware about the fact that we want that much Marvel in the Marvel community, as far as, like, you know, people that work at Marvel, and Capcom generally knows as well. What's interesting is that recently in a Capcom Q&A, they actually hold these a lot of the time on Cap Community. There was a recent Q&A with the North American VP, Christian Svensson, and they were asking questions about, a lot of folks were asking questions about all the Capcom games, and repeatedly, the topic of Marvel kept coming up. Throughout this process, if you guys want to actually check out some of the more substantial news, you can check it out on, I think it's on Event Hubs right now. But when they kept being asked about Ultimate Marvel 3, they said, quote unquote, I believe, it kills us not to be able to talk about some things. Trust me, we know you guys want more and you want answers. And there's stuff that we would love to tell you, but there are rules that we have to abide by. And from that, they didn't confirm anything one way or another. But what's interesting is that they're no longer saying no more Marvel, 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 over and over and over again. It's actually a different response this time, so who knows? It could mean something. One thing you have to realize is that when you're asking game companies questions and the game company has to respond, most of the time the game company does not want to lie to you, or generally won't be lying to the consumers or the people that are actively, pursuing their products or their titles. That happens sometimes, but that's like with pretty bad companies it usually happens with. Regardless, in situations, like this one, a lot of the times companies can't tell you what they're doing. They can't tell you the plans. They can't tell you what exactly is going on with any future titles unless they have something to show off. Like, they have to wait to show something, before anything actually happens. So the fact that these guys at Capcom are now saying different things is actually a good thing, is the fact that there's potentially a chance that something might be brewing, not the fact that something exists yet, because it's going to take, if something, recently happened, it's going to take a long time to get a game actually out into the public, especially considering that, it's probably going to have to be Capcom Japan making it, all the crazy stuff, even if it is an actual game. Regardless, it is, it's good news. It's kind of non-news. It's news talking about no news. But at the same time, it does leave me a little hopeful for the future of Capcom fighting games and potentially the future of Ultimate Marvel 3. So that's about it for the news of this week. What I wanted to talk about now was something that has been kind of crazy over the past few weeks when I've been watching a lot of hardcore competitive play for like Ultimate Marvel 3, and it's how this game is really going to be changing towards a certain playstyle, and that playstyle is infinites, and getting to your infinite as fast as possible. We actually had a couple episodes talking about this way back when the infinites were discovered, and we had no idea how much they were actually going to affect the outcome of the game, because many were still being discovered, and their usability was still being actually tested amongst many players, and back in the day, they were actually really hard. For the most part. I think Infrate was actually making very popular use of the Sentinel Infinite, but now things have definitely changed. You guys have probably seen Doom's Infinite a lot, and the reason Doom's Infinite is fairly easy to do is that it's kind of an extension of the Marlin Pie TAC swag combo with a little bit of a variation. Essentially, a lot of the muscle memory and the motion inputs are fairly similar to what you're already used to doing in a TAC like Doom swag combo, so it kind of sets itself up perfectly for landing, with the with the jumping light kick and then jumping back up to continue your combo. It's shocking how not that difficult it can be. It just takes a lot of focus to consistently get the motions over and over and over again. Why I wanted to talk about it now, because the Doom Infinite's been happening for quite a while, and many people have been adjusted and using it, especially in higher level competitive play and stuff like that. But now one has shown up that seems to be way more effective, way easier to use, and it's a character that's already damn good, and it's Magneto. What's shocking to think is that Magneto in Ultimate Marvel 3 might actually be a better character than the original Magneto in Marvel 3 and Magneto in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is crazy because he was like the go-to badass rushdown character in that game. And all around, I think Magneto might be a more effective total package. Or not have a total package, be an effective total package. I hope that doesn't get confused in this game. Mostly because, as of late, an Infinite was discovered not that long ago, probably about a month ago, for Magneto that is pretty damn easy. That is a following of about 4 inputs. You jump up, you do a fly combo, you release the fly combo, you do the 4 inputs again. It's fairly simple. For the most part, I didn't record it, but I was just like, how easy is this actually? How hard is this technically to pull off? And I went into training mode, I set up a TAC, and it is not hard at all. It is actually fairly simple to do. And it's not a lot of inputs like Doom's that requires a whole slew of stuff where you have to do like fly cancels and hopefully juggle in the right perfect spot, you know, with your jumping heavy attack and all this crazy stuff that happens within like a swag combo with Doom. With Magneto, it's a very easy 4 inputs. You go into a flight, you do like 4 or 5 more inputs, you cancel your flight, and you go back to the original 4 inputs. It's kind of insane how effective and probably how dominating this is going to be. The biggest gripe I have with it is the fact that the Magneto Infinite is extremely boring because it loses its damage very fast. So essentially you get a guy in this Magneto Infinite, and for you guys that don't know, back in the day in the original Marvel vs. Capcom games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, around 50 hits or so, if you had an Infinite for a character, the enemy would actually pop out. There would be literally a stun animation that if you acquired that many hits in a repeated combo, they would immediately pop out of it and you could not combo them anymore. It led into several reset situations, of course, because it's a Marvel game, but that doesn't exist in Ultimate Marvel 3. If you found a way around the hit stun scaling that kind of inhibits the combos in this game and prevents you from doing crazy infinites everywhere, like Doom foot diving you to holy hell in a corner, it stops you from doing any more of that and you pop out of it. But with the TAC glitch, of course, you guys know how this works. It removes hit stun scaling because after you TAC and you go into your next character's combo, hit stun scaling is just reset for the rest of the combo for some weird reason, and it was actually the same way in Marvel 3. And Magneto's is very easy to do, so I would not be surprised if down the line you start seeing a lot more of this. And it's kind of similar to, it's really similar, and it's kind of crazy how this is happening again, how Magneto had a fairly simple infinite quote-unquote combo that he can do in Marvel 3 or Marvel 2, which involved about like 2 or 3 inputs with him flying up and canceling and jumping back down and flight. You know, it was very simple. It started with like a short, I think it was a medium. I was actually not too sure the exact inputs because I didn't play Magneto in Marvel 2 at all. Regardless, it was something fairly similar, and we're seeing something similar again in Ultimate Marvel 3. It's kind of weird to think how these games just come full circle like this without the developers, or maybe even the players, ever intending it to be so. But Magneto is indeed always been top tier in the original Marvel 3 and in Ultimate Marvel 3, and his place on many tier lists might jump up very soon because of this Infinite and its ease of usability. It's funny how, like, tier lists in this game are so randomly jumping up and down and crazy. You have these characters that are good, but at least in Ultimate Marvel 3, we have about like 10 characters that are pretty effing fantastic in this game, besides even half that in the original Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And 10 more characters, probably 15 more, that are really good. So, I'm just saying, I'm kind of glad that there's a little bit of variety to this game, even though we might be seeing a lot of Magneto Infinites in the future. Regardless, it's just an interesting observation that I had while looking at all this stuff happening during really high-level competitive play. So moving on, besides the Infinite talk, there was a couple of questions I was getting from the previous episode of The Online Warrior, and if you guys do have questions, anything regarding gameplay, or you're having trouble with something, or you're having a question regarding the community, leave me a comment below and I'll try to tackle it if I see it for the next episode. I was asked by Camus1025, yo Max, question for you. For a while you were using Wesker, Doom, and Strider as your go-to team. Now you've got Dante back as your head lead spot. So my question is, will there be a permanent change, or will you be switching back to Wesker, or will these two be some kind of like rotation for you? I've used Dante almost like a lot throughout the original Marvel games, and Wesker. I feel like I know these characters a lot because literally before the game was even out, I was using them and I just liked them as characters. And I really, like, there's a thing in Ultimate Marvel 3, I really like doing Dante combos. Like, the way Dante combos feel when they land perfectly and you get all your bold cancels and everything just fits nicely into place, it feels really good. So putting Dante back on point was kind of fun. And what I've done recently to try to get Dante a little bit better in an online environment, or like a randomly, connection environment that can change all the time, is to practice under 2 bars with Dante doing combos. If you guys go into training mode and you're going to be playing exclusively online, I highly recommend that you practice and train under 2 bars, maybe 3. That's my best advice I can give you if you're not playing people in real life. If you're playing people actively and you're going to tournaments and such, absolutely play with no lag. Train with no lag, just go at it like you would normally go at it, and you'll probably make the adjustment just fine because your matchup experience from playing offline will help you enough in an online environment to know what's coming next, even with lag. But for the most part, to answer your question, I will be switching between the two. I actually do want to make a conscious effort to try out different point characters, along with Strider and Doom. I don't think I'm ever going to drop Strider and Doom anytime soon. I just enjoy playing those 2 characters so damn much. And it's the same thing in previous games. I love Dr. Doom in Marvel 2, I love Strider in Marvel 2, and I love Strider in Marvel 1. Ain't gonna give them up, but for now, yeah, I'm gonna stick out with Dante for a little bit. Might throw in some Nova fairly soon. But I'll definitely give you guys the chance to get in some games. For you guys that were frequently asking about lobbies and stuff like that, I might actually do an evening of player matches. And for you guys that don't know, player matches in Ultimate Marvel 3 allow you to just search randomly amongst player matches that don't affect your rank, of course. But it's not a lobby system, it's just individual matches, and it just pairs you up with somebody. And there's not a lot of people in player matches all the time. So that might be a good way to do like an open week of player matches where between, these couple of hours I'll make an announcement and I'll be in player matches. Don't worry about your rank, I'll be using newer characters and we can make some videos about it, like Max tries to learn Nova on point with this team. So if you guys want to see something like that, let me know. It might be a real good incentive to try to get and learn new characters besides like going into ranked in an online environment where I'm First Lord and everyone's using crazy keep away teams and it's ridiculously hard to learn anybody new because they die so damn fast. Other question came from Phoenix Knight 99. I don't know if anyone else has this problem, but when I use Strider's Legion on a downed opponent, it doesn't connect in time for the off the ground. Did he get nerfed? In fact, no, Strider's Legion has never changed, but what it has been always is very random. For you guys that do play Strider, you know my pain with this. Strider's Legion, and especially the bottom portion of Legion where the giant tigers come out, you've seen this every once in a while. Sometimes they just lag behind for no reason. I've done multiple things to try to test how you can potentially affect the pattern of the Legion animals coming out, and it seems to be unchanged. You try holding forward, holding the super buttons down, holding anything down, pressing buttons while it's happening, mashing buttons when it's happening, it does nothing. The pattern of which all the animals come out of Legion can be super random, and sometimes the cats on the bottom, which actually OTG your opponent and pick them up for the rest of the hit super to hit, lag behind, and it's really annoying. It's something that they should just not... I really wish that if they do get to a point where they patch Strider in the future, they take the Legion Super and they just set it and remove the randomization factor and just give us a set time instead of hoping the fact that it's going to reach across the screen and hit somebody. And for you asking, like, sometimes it doesn't hit OTG, that's because you got to do it really quick. As soon as you hit the ground with Strider, you have to hit that combo, especially if you have a combo that has a lot of hit stun in it. And you Strider players definitely know what I mean. So moving on to our clip of the week, it was sent in by, I believe it's J Rizzo 101. He had a question that went along with it. He was asking about overheads, and when he was fighting up against this team of Nova, Dr. Doom, and Iron Man, who's actually under rookie, but I highly doubt is a rookie based off his play, was having issues with Nova and running into a lot of his overheads, and that's how he was taking a lot of damage. A lot of this comes with matchup knowledge. There's not really any way for you to predict overheads or to be extremely aware of them unless you know that your opponent can do it. That's the thing in fighting games. That's kind of the general statement in fighting games. Later on, I might actually make a video, quote-unquote, how to play fighting games, which involve 3 really necessary steps or kind of like play practices before you can get really good or competitively good at a fighting game. And one of those, of course, is learning the matchups and learning who you're fighting, especially the character matchups. Now, when you're going up against somebody like Nova, Nova's got a few really powerful overheads. He's got, I believe, forward and heavy, which is this huge smashing move that also hits off the ground. That one can be pretty slow, but sometimes they'll throw it in the middle of like an assist combo, so you gotta be really careful with that one. The other one is the fact that if he gets you caught into a beam super, which he does have, he has Iron Man and probably Dr. Doom. If he gets you caught up into a beam, like assist of any kind, Nova can go forward and quickly jump up and dash with his light kick, and that is an extremely hard overhead to block. You have to like push block the light kick at the top, and online it's almost impossible to push block. You literally have to predict the fact that he's going to do an overhead, which comes with a lot of online training. You just kind of need to know what your opponent wants to do. And the other one is essentially his just quick jump-ins. Nova's also got an assist that allows him to jump up and dive down. I think that might actually happen at one point in this video. That also is an overhead. When he jumps up and he comes down with like this big kicking spike, look out for that one. That is an overhead as well, and people do set that up in certain combos and block strings to put Nova out perfectly where he does the overhead and your opponent comes in for a low attack, pretty much making it unblockable. The computer can block against it, but as a human player, you do not have the reaction to actually do that unless you get extremely lucky. So let's look at the rest of this game. He's got Iron Man and he's got Dr. Doom left on his team. Nova looks like he is gone, so things are going fairly well, but you only have Strider left on this team. Strider, you did save level 3 Ouroboros for, which is good, but he negates a little bit of the time for it by throwing out an X Factor, but it does... Ooh, oh, you gotta kill Iron Man. There we go. Works well in your favor. Get the Vatra kick. And now you've got Strider versus Dr. Doom. Both are X Factor, and I think this is actually in Strider's favor. Doom can't get this, but you missed the launcher right at the very end. Oh, this is going to get extremely close. I've seen a couple of opportunities at the end here, and you fall prey to the foot dive in the end. So sadly, you actually could have taken that match, but use a little bit of my advice. Look out for those big overheads that Nova has, and hopefully in the future, when you go up against him, you might not get hit by so many overheads. And if you guys enjoyed this episode of The Online Warrior for Ultimate Marvel 3, please let me know in the comments below. I'd be glad to answer any questions, like I said, if you do have something concerning the community or the game, and I'll do my best to help you out. But until then, my name is Maximilian, and I'll see you guys next week.